Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about the famous race of long-eared inhabitants of the planet Naboo. If you like what I do, by the link in the description you can help the channel, and now I will briefly talk about the history and culture of the Gungan, and I wish you a pleasant viewing. The story of the origins of the Gungans is shrouded in a fog as deep and impenetrable as the one that covered the green fields of Naboo in the 32 years before the Battle of Yavin on the eve of the memorable battle with the Trade Federation droid army. Recently, the fact that the Gungans are the original inhabitants of Naboo has been increasingly questioned. According to a number of scientists, the ancestors of the modern Gungans were not amphibians but land dwellers. The first evidence of the appearance of Gungans on Naboo dates back to the end of the Ice Age on the planet. Archaeologists have managed to find information about the battles of Gungan hunters with wool-covered predators, Veermoks, and Bursas. To protect themselves from the numerous bloodthirsty beasts, the Gungans created armed groups of hunters which would eventually form the beginning of the Great Army. After the end of the Ice Age, the Gungans began to settle the planet's vast plains, but soon turned their attention to a habitat that had literally everything to offer them. It was water. The conflict with the Elders, a now extinct race whose majestic architectural monuments can be found all over the planet, was an additional factor that forced the Eeyore to develop the underwater virgin lands. Over time, the Elders' civilization perished, but the Gungans were able to adapt to the underwater life, because it was possible to get access to an unlimited amount of food and plasma reserves, which became the basis for further development of Gungan technologies. The two largest Gungan subraces, the Slender Otola and the OBC Ankura, united, thus creating the prerequisites for the emergence of modern Gungan statehood. Some 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, a brutal civil war divided the Gungan people into many warring tribes. In the end, Boss Gallo and his allies prevailed. After the glorious victory, the great ruler founded a new capital named Oto Gunga in the captured lands of the enemy. The mighty Gallo not only holds the honor of ending years of bloody conflict, but also of uniting numerous clans and tribes into a single force. To this day, Boss Gallo's name is celebrated at festivals and celebrations, and young children reproduce Gallo's great feats in a playful version. After the colonization of Naboo by the Griswold people, the Gungan people's way of life was disrupted. Though not immediately. At the initial stage of colonization, the humans were too weak and small in number to openly confront the great Gungan army, while the natives themselves did not take the aliens with their machinkas and stuff seriously. Nevertheless, the neighborhood of two different cultures slowly but surely nurtured the seeds of hatred. If the Gungans considered the inhabitants of your Naboo as pompous cowards and self-righteous fools, the cultured and highly educated Nabooans looked at the amphibious aborigines as primitive, rugged barbarians. Often people, taking advantage of the natural simplicity of the Gungans, used them in their own interest. For example, in 529 before the Battle of Yavin Hugo Barton, under the pretext of a new better life near the pristine seas, La Moretta lured a group of poor Gungans and turned them into slaves. Years passed. The discovery of vast deposits of plasma in the underwater caves of Naboo attracted the greedy eyes of Nabooans and businessmen from across the galaxy. In the 150 before the Battle of Yavin, a long and brutal conflict with the Gungans broke out, during which the royal house of Naboo and the nobility actively enlisted the help of mercenaries. In the end, the Gungans defended their lands, albeit suffering heavy losses. During the war, the last of the male heirs to the throne died, after which a queen was elected for the first time in Naboo's history, a practice that will become widespread in the future. Intermittent clashes with the Nabooans continued until the Trade Federation blockade of Naboo in 32 before the Battle of Yavin. The first phase of the invasion was directed against major human cities, but soon the underwater Gungan settlements also experienced the murderous fury of the army of Machunks. Some of the tribes fell to the invaders' blows or were captured and placed in camps. However, the Gungan leader, Boss Nass, and most of his tribesmen managed to escape safely. The history of the events on Naboo and the important contribution of the Gungan people, including Jar Jar Binks, are well known to readers of Episode 1 of the saga, so we will not dwell on them. The liberation of Naboo from the Neimoidian yoke led to a number of major changes in Gungan politics. First, Queen Amidala and Boss Nass made an eternal peace between the two nations of Naboo. Second, the amphibious natives entered space for the first time and established colonies on neighboring worlds like the moons Omadun and Rory, and finally the Gungan got their own representative in the Senate, Jar Jar Binks. During the Separatist crisis, it would be a prominent Gungan who would propose granting special powers to the Supreme Chancellor, which would be another stepping stone for Palpatine on his way to the heights of absolute power. In the 22 before the Battle of Yavin, the Separatists under Durge's command test a new weapon on the moon, Ohamadung, a swamp gas that will destroy the Gungan colony in minutes. Thanks to the timely intervention of Jedi Knights, including Kenobi and Skywalker, the attack on Naboo is thwarted. Soon, a new threat in the form of the dusky genius Nuvo Vindi and his blue ghost virus rises over Naboo, but this time too, the worst is averted. Subsequently, Gungans who remained loyal to the Republic would take part in the liberation of Dak, and some would join the Grand Army of the Republic as auxiliaries. In the 19-year before the Battle of Yavin, after the tragic death of Padme Amidala, the Gungans shared the grief for the former queen with the Nabooans. After the creation of the First Galactic Empire, the Gungans, fearing persecution, retreated to their underwater cities, although some of them decided to become mercenaries or smugglers. The 501st Legion once again proved their professionalism by driving the amphibians back into the swamps and lakes. Senator Binks retained his seat, but was replaced by a human senator shortly before the Battle of Yavin. The death of the Emperor near Endor in Year 4 after the Battle of Yavin and the destruction of the second Death Star was greeted with joy on Naboo. Local cells of the Rebel Alliance, supported by the Gungans, defeated the Imperial garrison and cleansed Naboo of the Imperial presence. The planet was soon officially part of the New Republic and became one of the powerful Republic outposts during the war with Thrawn. Invasion by the Yuuzhan Vong bypassed Naboo and its inhabitants, though alien ships did show up once within the system. During the Sith Imperial War of 127-130 after the Battle of Yavin, the inhabitants of Naboo supported the Galactic Alliance, and later, during the years of Darth Krayt's usurpation of power, the Empire of Roan fell. By 137 after the Battle of Yavin, Gungans could be found almost everywhere. During their long years of isolation from much of the galaxy, the Gungans have developed an exotic, distinctive, and colorful culture. Today, the Gungans have two languages: Old Gungan, which is usually used only during religious ceremonies, and the so-called Gungan Pidgin, which is a motley mixture of basic and words from the local dialect. In particular, the words Okide, Ski Beetle, Machiniques, Bombad, and so on are widely used. An interesting find for scientists were the Gung slabs, on one side of which were found inscriptions in ancient Corellian, and on the other, in Old Gungan, which suggested a connection between ancient Corellian and Gungans. The modern speech of the Gungans, despite its intricacy, is mostly understandable to the inhabitants of other worlds. It may seem strange to some, but the inhabitants of Naboo have created many recognized masterpieces of literature, such as the epic poem Deep Dark Water. In general, the Gungan people are sociable, good-natured, and friendly. They love guests and are happy to make new friends. However, if someone threatens their peaceful existence and behaves like an enemy, the long-eared creatures immediately take up arms and do not calm down until they destroy the enemy. The laws of Gungan society are strict and severe. Even a minor offense, such as disturbing the public peace, can be punished quickly, decisively, and mercilessly. The system of punishments includes public flogging, whipping, caning, and banishment, which for sociable Gungans is like death. The death penalty can also be applied. The Gungan pantheon is vast and complex, and includes many gods, deities, and spirits, many of whom represent forces of nature. Chief among them is considered to be Oma Oma, the creator of life, who dwells with the other gods in the magnificent underwater palace of Osiris, guarded by monstrous Sando and giant Gungan warriors riding Keadu. Like some other peoples like the Wookiee or the Trandoshan, the Gungan believe in the duty of life. If someone saves a Gungan from certain death, the rescued person is obligated to dedicate his or her life to the savior. This is exactly what Jar Jar Binks did when he met with Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi in the year 32 before the Battle of Yavin. Despite a developed religion and a high degree of spirituality, the Gungans do not build their own temples. The gray ruins left by the ancients' buildings are considered cult sites. The largest of them are located on the northern edge of the Leonorm Swamp and are called the Sacred Place. In years of need and danger, the Gungans take refuge from danger in the surrounding forests. Like any religious society, the Gungans occasionally face the rise of sects, the most notorious to date being the Muskags, who stole a valuable artifact from Boss Nass in Year 1 after the Battle of Yavin, and the fanatical Ultra Gungans. The fun activities of the Gungan people are interesting and numerous. For example, the so-called sling painting is a kind of competition in which competitors arm themselves with paintballs and throw them at various objects. For example, dancing droid astromechs, gradually creating works of art from them. The annual Bongo Rally always draws crowds of spectators. Warriors test their strength and skill in martial arts events that include tests of strength and agility, ocean races, gula pad wrestling, and throwing. Gungans adore dancing. The so-called disco is very popular among them, the invariable attribute of which is bright illumination and complete freedom of movement. Another famous dance of the long-eared, which gained great popularity during the Clone Wars, is the so-called Gungan style. The recognized master of both was, of course, everyone's favorite Binks. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. See ya!